No, 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 no.
Quite a nice evening, isn't it? Hey everyone, it's me, Pui. Been quite a while since I filmed my face not in a moving vehicle, huh? Wonder why that is? Why I've come back since Worlds? Well, it's quite simple. If you haven't been paying attention to the never-ending autoerotic Ouroboros that is the GOAT format hype cycle, I just topped with Ron Control Control. That's not Ron Control, that's Ron Control Control. Where's that extra control come from? What is this, a spicy meatball, and how does it differ from its fourth author? Well, really not all that much, and at the same time, completely different. As often is with GOAT format decks, really only a couple cards changes to another list creates a profound new difference, and the stories behind those decks are often what's more interesting than the resulting product and the performance. So, without further ado, we'll go through how I got from point A, no deck at all, perhaps Fairy Burn, to point Z, Ron Control Control, in a single morning, and top subsequently. Be sure to like and comment if you think this is cool. If you're a big Ron fan, I know I am. If you just want to say some other texts you have for this deck, I am actively working for it and actively interested. Make sure to subscribe because more Ron videos are coming, that big video coming as well, a nice deep dive for you little intellectuals out there. But for now, we'll begin our deep dive into Ron Control Control. Check it out. So, as often happens with my greatest creations, you can find a foot trail, a path I walked of deck lists from the times of yore that led up to what I ended up playing in the event. And today's deck started with none other than the new hotness, Tim's Fairy Burn deck. If you've not seen this deck, absolutely go check out his deck tech. This deck is absolutely sweet. Strategy is simple enough. You have a sort of Panda Burn shell, but you're using lights over earths, and you are using Agent of Creation Venus, Mystic Shine Ball, in combination with Solar Ray instead of using Secret Barrel. And what this does is it gives you the ability to deal burn damage with your own agency and to deal it very quickly, obviously. Solar Ray plus a fully activated Venus is 2400 damage, which is absolutely insane. Couple that with the Venus and the ball and the goats and the swaps, the deck has some absolutely crazy ability to deal some weird damage, hold the fort for a really long time, and then close out the game with Solar Ray and just desserts. Now, I picked up this deck and I really enjoyed it. My immediate upgrade I made after just a few games was moving the Magicians of Faith into the main over these Suzuki Samurais. They're just not good. And I think in their place I put in, I believe, one Tsukiyomi and one Mystic Tomato just to make finding the jars that much easier. Deck played amazing, and what really stuck to me was what it felt like playing Ron Control with Scapegoat again in this shell after an opponent sides for burn, and how good that felt. And it made me start thinking back on the day of this PWCQ to the old Alderso control builds. Now this, of course, was the last Ron control build that I managed to top with in a couple PWCQs ago. And I did end up playing the control package in the side to be able to side into that against some decks, but not all. And it really stuck with me, the fact that Alderso's old versions always kept playing Thunder Dragon because it feels so intuitive with the card destruction. But the more I played this deck and all this experience, it's very good at gumming up the board, but it really still does have a ton of moments where you're just not playing with real cards. Your card quality is extremely low. You have a great deal of situations where Book of Moon, Book of Taiyu really aren't what you need. Shallow Grave. You'll draw a lone meta, which, like, is a thing that can happen in any control deck, but when you couple that with all the other random books you have and the Thunder Dragons, you start having these really gummed up hands. And in the end, I'd say Ron Control Classic in this Chaos Control style, it was really kind of hard to sort of keep up. And I'm sitting here today really wanting to play something Ron Control and trying to experiment with those goats again. And I just had this weird realization. Instead of making it a Chaos Control deck with Ron elements, what if it was a goat control deck with Ron elements? And so immediately what I go and do is look up some JCVD93, and he happened to get second place in the PWCQ before with this list. And thinking back, I also recalled the Geist D control list, I think particularly the one that he got second at Worlds with, which was playing in the main Morphing Jar, Cyber Jar, and 3 Solemn Judgments. And this deck as well not only is playing Morphing Jar and DMOC as well, and the Solemn Judgments, it just already has the Premature Burial, and previous builds of JCVD's Go Control have also played Abyss Soldier. And I was starting to look at all of this, and I was starting to think, this deck has a lot of crossover with Ron Control already. Without changing many cards, we might be able to make something that's actually fairly efficient. And it really hit me after some good conversation with my teammates at UI, particularly Splevin and Shaggy, Crashful, I believe, and I think Nate Dogg. Shout out to everyone on the team, of course, especially those fellas, especially Splevin, I'd say. Eventually we came to the conclusion of this. This is Ron Control Control. It is a Go Control deck that is playing very few cards to facilitate basically a full Ron Control strategy. Ron Control has almost always played the Mystic Tomato and emphasized trying to get to the Cyber Jar as fast as possible. But when you're playing that game, you have a limited amount of moves, and they can be solved by a good deal of cards that people are already playing, especially today, especially in Chaos Turbo and Warrior. It's tough out there, even with the swaps, even with the goats, just to have that be the plan. But if you just are going to slot it into a deck that you could have already played those cards already, it becomes something much scarier. You know, Go Control can already play Abyss Soldier, it can already play Cyber Jar, it can already play Dark Magician of Chaos, it can already play Spy, which in my testing since when I built that Ron Control deck, I found that Spy with DMOC were both absolutely amazing includes, completely revitalized the deck for me since my original top. On that same token, you can kind of play Card Destruction, not really, but we made it work. You're already playing the goats in meta as I wanted to. You can already play Solemn, Ring is the kill card, and you've got a creature swap, which works quite well with the jars. So going off of this original JCVD deck, it was pretty easy to figure out which of these cards wouldn't really work with the Ron strategy and weren't needed as much. Obviously, he's playing these 3 draw ones. Dust Shoot can go into the sides for certain strategies. The decos just aside, and you start getting these specific spots. And you can even isolate them down to just 5 cards. These cards here would not be normally played in a Go Control deck, but in the context of this deck with such a low opportunity cost, all of these cards having their own uses, the deck all of a sudden has a bunch of new capabilities, and a bunch of a good way to go overhead against other control decks and turbo decks, because obviously, if you're going to grind the game out, and you're able to end the game by slumping someone, or card-desing them to death, it gives you an incentive to keep stalling. In fact, even looking at this now, I wonder if there's a reason for us to play Scapegoat. In addition, most of these goat control decks are actually secretly OTK decks, disguised as control decks with a little bit of a control game they can play. They certainly have that capability. So even more so than people realize, Giant Trinate slots in right fine. All I did was cut the spot which would otherwise be Breaker and MST. Breaker and MST are right here on the side, and you have this capability to just bounce all their stuff away and kill them with this ridiculous stuff. The amount of cards in here that can just create burst kills even without the Ron stuff, it's very clear to see if you're paying attention. You see you've got Abyss Soldier here in conjunction with the Sinister, and you've got Prima, which can go on DMOC, or can go on Abyss Soldier. You can even go Abyss Soldier with Prima, then bounce it, then put it on the DMOC, and then you can maybe go Trunade, bounce that again, etc, etc. You've got Zaborg for the burst, you've got Virus, you've got Blackluster Soldier, and yes, you do have Summoner of Illusions. Why are we playing Summoner of Illusions in this meatball when JCVD was originally playing Insect? Because I wanted to. I mean, I really don't have another answer. You'll see later in the gameplay, we did end up doing a crazy kill with this card, and I've done a couple in some casual matches as well. Just the ability to summon a big fusion monster is pretty nuts, and I mean, we were already playing the Book of Taiyu, and we're already playing the Desert Sunlight, so it felt pretty easy to keep facilitating these flips with this guy. speaking of, there's so many good flip monsters in here. He's already playing the 2 Spy I was, so I get to use Demok. I'm already playing Magician of Faith, we have our Jars, and we have the Summoner. Desert Sunlight's an insane card in this shell, as is Mind Control. Because we're grinding the game out, and because Turbo's the main reason we would need Knock, we can actually side a Knock and use Mind Control instead. Now, why Mind Control in Ron decks over Knock? The answer is GOAT Rule 14. Now, if you've ever played against me and typed can't when I flip summon your faith, listen closely. If you summon a monster to your side of the field by my card effect on my turn, and I steal it, I'm entitled to a position change. It is my absolute favorite rule in GOAT format, all the way back to when I first picked up Empty Jar as like my second deck ever before I even was playing Burn. But in any case, it's great. And you can also get rid of Chaos Monsters with it, which is really, really important. The deck has great removal options and has these great spell bursts, so you can do combinations of Creature Swap, Mind Control, Snatch Steal, Metamorphosis, Tribute Summon to Borg, Abyss. When you get that giant quantity of cards that Cyberjar affords, and that Taiyu and Sunlight make easy to achieve, you can quickly convert that into a kill with the cards you have, or at least lock down the board with your Goats and your Solemns, your Ring, your Book of Moon, etc. So you see, it's surprisingly a well-oiled machine. The cards really fit in well. Technically, Heavy Slump and Card Destruction are obviously not the most ideal cards, and if you wanted to just make a deck that was playing 1 Desert Sunlight, 1 Book of Taiyu, you could possibly experiment with that. But, I mean, come on. Just look at it. It's so fucking funny. How can you not? Anywho, let's move on to the side. Obviously, the Warrior matchup for Ron Control is not very good. But the Warrior matchup for GOAT Control, and particularly JCVD GOAT Control, is insanely good. I have never ever before played a day of Ron Control, or anything I would consider Ron Control, run into mostly Warriors and be happy about it. But when I'm packing 2 Scapegoats, 2 Metamorphosis, Gravekeeper Sky, Abyss Soldier, Creature Swap, a second in the side, a Zombira, a Spirit Weeper, Breaker, more attack prevention, and Royal Decree, it's good. We want to run into Warriors. Against Turbo, we'll just do more Ron stuff, or if we don't want to, if we think they'll block that, we have the option to side in Trap, Dust Shoot, Royal Decree, and Nobleman of Crossout, and all of a sudden we can pretty easily snuff Turbo in a more classic control strategy, a Decree control strategy, or we can do some sort of mix of the two, adding in Decree but keeping in some of the Ron stuff. The possibilities are absolutely there. Now, I ended up losing to Don't Copy in round 4, right on the cusp of top 8. He was playing Burn. The Burn matchup I actually think is extremely good. I just think Don't Copy is absolutely insane, absolute beast of a player. Big shouts to him for the many, many tops with the many cool decks. EP Love. But I just didn't draw the cards I needed. There were many cards there, however. Of course, we do have our Breaker. We do have our Creature Swap going great with Ojamas. GOAT Rule 14 also applies to Ojamas, so if they summon Ojamas on your turn, you can turn them to attack, and then you can Creature Swap them, which is absolutely nasty. We've got our extra Mystical Space Typhoon, 1 Meme Walk, and we have Torrential Tribute, Royal Decree as well as Swords, so we have plenty of options. I am potentially considering other options against Burn, but the deck does feel quite equipped to handle a lot of Burn stuff without sacrificing too much of its own plan and having plenty of cards for other matchups. Same goes with Reasoning Gate. I was originally going to play Karibo, but looking at it, we have plenty of options here. It's all about having an understanding on how these cards can lock together and what matchups these cards lock into for different matchups, because so many of them have so many uses and so many contexts. Obviously, so much love and shouts to JCBD, because I did just take mostly his deck and then slot in the Ron cards in a way that I thought would really fit well. It's really his understanding of these cards and their interactions that I sort of had to pick up on as I was playing and sort of get to know, and how my Ron cards would interact with them. But in the end, I think it went absolutely amazing, and I really, really enjoyed it. This deck has felt really strong. I've played it a ton since, and you'll see in the matches, it does so many things. Did I potentially just shove a Book of Taiyu into a Go Control deck? Yeah. Have I won a lot of games by doing a turn 1 Book of Taiyu on a morphing jar? Yeah. So without further ado, take a look at my matches from PWCQ 54. Please go ahead and comment any thoughts, feelings, concerns, adorations, admirations, or anything in between. Be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that new video coming out. I am quite excited about the topic, and so is Jace. But without further ado, enjoy the gameplay, and I hope you have a lovely day.